The Vikings are undoubtedly one of the most fascinating peoples in history, having left a deep mark on the map of Europe and the world. Their expansions, conquests, trade routes, and cultural achievements have become the foundation of many modern myths and legends, which we will analyze today. Most books and films describe the Vikings as fierce, unwashed barbarians who did nothing but ruthlessly plunder ordinary people and had no signs of civilization. But is that really the case? Make yourselves comfortable. Today, we will experience a day in the life of the Vikings. And to help us, we have one of the representatives of this people. Meet Ragnar Thorvaldsson. The year is 818, and our Ragnar lives in the beautiful Scandinavian town of Ribe, located in the geographical south of modern Denmark. When talking about the Vikings, many of us immediately think of Norway or Sweden, but Denmark is just as much a homeland of the Vikings as its two northern brothers. Finland, which is also geographically in Scandinavia, has no relation to the Vikings at all. The Vikings at most frightened the local population with raids on coastal towns, but nothing more. The geography of their origins played an important role in shaping their skills and culture. The northern climate, with long winters and cold summers, required people to have great endurance and the ability to adapt to harsh conditions. The Vikings learned to live and thrive in such an environment, using their natural resources and achieving remarkable mastery in shipbuilding and navigation. Our Ragnar was, in fact, a shipbuilder. By the way, Viking names are an interesting topic that deserves attention. Traditionally, they named their children after various gods, such as Eric, Harold, and Sigurd for boys, and Freya, Astrid, and Ingeborg for girls. The name Ragnar translates as God of War or Divine Warrior. However, the surname is not as simple. Typically, the father's name was followed by the suffix son, so Ragnar's surname Thorvaldsson means son of Thorvald. Interestingly, this tradition still exists in Eastern European countries such as Russia, Ukraine, and Belarus, where official documents, in addition to first and last names, include a patronymic indicating the father's name with the suffix ish. Does that remind you of anything? Historians and scientists believe this is because the first ruler of Kievan Rus was Prince Rurik, who also had Viking roots. If you're interested in learning more about this, we will release a separate video. Now let's continue. Navigation became a defining feature of the Vikings. They built unique ships, drakars, which gained great fame for their strength, maneuverability, and ability to travel both across open seas and along rivers and lakes. This allowed them to carry out rapid raids, looting, and of course, large expeditions. The Vikings were among the best sailors of their time. Their ships enabled them to explore new territories, establish colonies in distant lands, and conduct expeditions, which remains one of the most fascinating aspects of their history. They not only raided southern territories such as England, France, and Ireland, but also explored distant lands. Their traces can be found even beyond Europe, for example, in North Africa, on the territory of modern Tunisia and Libya, and even in Persia. Additionally, the famous Viking Leif Erikson is considered the first European to reach North America. Erikson likely arrived on the shores of modern Canada, where he founded a settlement he called Vinland. But the most fascinating part is that this happened in the 11th century. Just think, 5 centuries before Christopher Columbus. Impressive, isn't it? Artists, writers, and poets also played a significant role in Viking society. They created sagas, epic poems describing the heroic deeds of the Vikings. These sagas became the foundation for many modern perceptions of the Vikings and remain an important element of Viking culture studies to this day. Traditions were crucial to their social life. They did not have a single monarch, but their social structure was very well organized. At the top were jarls or chieftains who ruled over their tribes. The Vikings had institutions that were a kind of people's assembly, where important matters such as wars, peace treaties, and even local affairs were discussed. And these assemblies were called tinges, and they were an important element of the democratic order in Viking society. Things played a vital role in their social organization. These gatherings decided on essential aspects of community life, including conflict resolution, the establishment of fines and punishments, and even blood feuds. Although their society was primarily military, it had clearly defined rules and laws that regulated communal life. These included not only military laws, but also civil laws concerning family relations, property, and inheritance. Despite being seen as a warrior people, the Vikings also valued family life. They had strong family ties, and women played an important role in society. They managed households, took care of children, and engaged in farming and crafts. The Vikings also conducted various rituals to honor their gods and the souls of deceased relatives. Funerals were often accompanied by grand sacrifices and ceremonies, emphasizing the importance of the soul's transition to the afterlife. They had a rich mythology that deeply influenced their daily lives. They believed in numerous deities representing various aspects of nature and human activities. Among the most famous gods was Odin, the god of war, wisdom, and death, as well as his son Thor, the god of thunder and storms, who was revered for his strength and courage. They believed that after death, heroes entered Valhalla, the palace of the gods. But if you were a glorious and brave warrior, but because of your earthly sins you could not get to Valhalla, you should not despair. You had a chance to get to Hell, which was also a paradise, but of a lower rank. The Vikings also actively honored their ancestors. This was an important aspect of their spiritual life, and they performed rituals to maintain a connection with the souls of deceased relatives. Archaeologists have discovered numerous Viking burials where offerings and ritual objects were found, confirming the significance of these ceremonies. Some of these burials indicate a cremation tradition, while others suggest cremation rites involving burial ships. However, these were likely rare cases, as it was obviously not possible to bury everyone this way. Archaeologists have found bodies buried with personal items such as swords or shields, and in some cases even entire ships, likely the graves of notable individuals. Apart from their spiritual traditions, Vikings were also devoted family people. They built their homes from wood and stone, with the main architectural feature being longhouses, longs, one of which was home to the familiar Ragnar. These were large, elongated structures where the entire family lived. Longhouses had open hearths inside for heating and cooking, as well as designated sleeping areas. Outside their homes, Vikings cultivated wheat, barley, and oats, contributing significantly to the development of agriculture. Livestock farming played a crucial role in their lives, and Ragnar, like many of his comrades, kept a large number of animals, including sheep, cows, and horses. Cows provided milk and meat, while sheep were valued for their wool, which was used to make textiles. These homes were dark, with lighting provided only by small fires or torches, creating a cozy yet sometimes hazardous atmosphere. Every house was arranged to ensure maximum comfort for the family in the harsh northern climate. In the evenings, Ragnar often tanned animal hides, which he then used to craft clothing and footwear. Wood was also used to make furniture and various tools. Viking food was simple yet nutritious. Their staple foods included meat, beef, pork, lamb, venison, fish, grains, vegetables, and dairy products. They also frequently consumed honey, especially in the form of mead, an alcoholic beverage made from fermented honey. During long winters, Vikings preserved food by salting meat and fish, allowing them to survive the cold months. Interestingly, Vikings were the first people in Europe to breed fish in designated areas. For example, near a lake in Norway, archaeologists found a memorial plaque dedicated to a person who introduced fish to the lake, making fishing much easier and more accessible than in the wild. In addition, the Vikings were renowned for their craftsmanship, particularly in blacksmithing and weapon making. They produced highly effective weapons, swords, battle axes, bows, and arrows, as well as helmets and armor that were admired for their quality and durability. Viking swords, in particular, were famous for maintaining their sharpness even after many battles. Vikings also created jewelry and ornaments made of gold and silver, often distributing them through trade networks stretching from Iceland to the Arab world. This contradicts the media and film industry's portrayal of Vikings as merely raiders and plunderers. In reality, they undertook vast trading expeditions, exchanging goods with various cultures and nations. Their trade routes spanned great distances, establishing vital connections between different peoples of Europe, Asia, and even North Africa. They exported furs, leather, and metal goods from Northern Europe, while importing silk, spices, precious stones, and textiles from other lands. One of their most notable trade relationships was with Byzantium and the Arab world. Thus, the Vikings were not just warriors and conquerors, but also active participants in cultural and economic exchanges. However, the Vikings' relationships with other European nations were often complex. They frequently raided the coasts of France, England, Ireland, and even Spain. Yet over time, some Vikings settled in these territories, intermingled with local populations, and became integral parts of their societies. Viking settlements were established in England, France, Ireland, Iceland, and even Ukraine. Those who settled played a significant role in shaping political structures, especially in England, where they left a lasting impact on history through the formation of the Norman dynasty. Another fascinating aspect of Viking culture was their writing system. They used runic script, which consisted of a set of symbols, runes. This writing system was not only a tool for recording information, but also an essential element of magic and rituals. Runes were believed to possess mystical properties and were used for both writing ritual texts and divination. Runic inscriptions were often found on burial stones or other objects that have survived to this day. Interestingly, some Viking runes were still in use in rural Sweden until the mid-19th century. Yes, you heard that right. Yet what truly enriched Viking culture was their vast collection of legends and myths, which are almost impossible to count. One of the most famous is the legend of the last campaign of the great Viking Harald Sigurdsson, who was the king of Norway. Harald, known for his bravery and determination, was one of the most significant Vikings involved in the conquest of England. It is recorded that Harald was killed in the Battle of Stamford Bridge in 1066, marking the decline of the Viking era. Another well-known Viking-related myth is the idea that they wore horned helmets, something Vikings never actually used. This myth was likely invented to create a more distinctive visual representation of Vikings. In conclusion, the Viking people played a foundational role in the formation of new states, such as Norway, Denmark, and Sweden. Even today, their influence can be seen in these countries through their architecture, languages, traditions, and even modern scientific research related to their way of life. Although the Viking age has long passed, they remain one of the most intriguing and enigmatic peoples in history. Their contributions to European civilization, cultural achievements, and heroic sagas continue to captivate the imagination of people today. Vikings did not just leave behind unforgettable images of fierce warriors, but also a legacy of exploration, conquest, and extensive trade networks that shaped history. That brings us to the end of this video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Also, share your thoughts and suggestions for future videos in the comments. Thanks for watching, and see you next time, dear friends.